Welcome, welcome, my spirited living friends and lovers of the divine feminine. Oh, it's lovely to be here with you again on this eve of International Women's Day, at just the beginning in the first week of Women's History Month. And I've been doing these videos, as many of you know, if you've tuned in before, since August or so of 2020 during the pandemic. And every once in a while, I'll spin off and do someone who is not a goddess, a traditional goddess, if you will. Julian of Norwich, Hildegard von Bingen, Guinevere I did for the archetype that she represents. And I was all set to do someone else that I won't go into. But then realizing the timing of it, realizing that today is the full moon, it's a full moon in Virgo, and I won't go into that here. I did my Virgo full moon meditation yesterday, and I will include the link for that in the YouTube description that goes up tomorrow. But I realized, and she's come across my path in so many ways, that I needed to do something that spoke to me deeply and personally on many levels, but also just iconic, and so that's how I came to Audre Lorde. I will say that, as I really try to do, I've always called her Audre Lorde. It's Audrey without the Y, but as I researched and listened to different pronunciations, some say Audra, some say Audrey. I couldn't find anywhere she's saying her own name. So if anyone knows for sure, I would love to hear that. I always like to get that right. And whether or not you are watching this as I'm speaking, or you tune into this later, just know that she was really a foremother of so many things for us. She was a Black feminist, socialist, poet. She's probably, poet and writer really in general. But she really represented intersectionality before that phrase came into being as we know it, by Kimberly Crenshaw back in 1989 or something like that, because she was all these things. She represented across the board. She was a mother. She was a wife for a short period of time in the 60s, had 2 children from that somewhat brief marriage. And then in 1972, she met her lifelong partner, a woman, Frances Clayton. And they were together for a very long time. And she started writing poetry when she was in high school. She grew up, one of the ways that I connect with her, grew up in New York City. She was born in New York City in 1934. She died in St. Croix in 1992, I want to say. I've got it written down somewhere. She survived breast cancer, but then ended up dying of liver cancer. And I'll bring her in about that. So that's just a tiniest little spotlight, which of course is all I can ever do, since I try not to make these videos longer than 15 minutes. But what I'd like to do today, I don't know that I'll get to a chant, which I love to do on these videos, but I definitely want to share some of her poetry, some of her writing, and then really, really encourage you to go online. And she is everywhere. She's in all kinds of poetry websites, and also find presentations of her reading her own poetry. There are a ton of YouTube videos out there too. So all that said, what else do I want to tell you in terms of background before I start reading some of these really wonderful pieces of hers? Well, one of the ways that she, a couple ways that she has that I have a personal connection with her, is that I've had a quote of hers before I really knew who she was. I'm chagrined to say, over my desk, I think since I started my practice, my business, spirited living, like in the late 90s. And that quote is, "When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid." Isn't that wonderful? always hits me. And it's has stayed up right plastered over my computer all that time. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in service of my vision, it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. Now, the one that really triggered me to think, oh, my goddess, I really would love to highlight her, is a quote that is perfect with International Women's Day coming up tomorrow. I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. And in fact, one of the wonderful things that was written about her from an Alison Kimmich in Feminist Writers, throughout all of Audre Lorde's writing, both nonfiction and fiction, a single theme surfaces repeatedly. The Black lesbian, feminist poet, activist, reminds her readers that they ignore differences among people at their peril. Instead, Lorde suggests, differences in race or class must serve as a reason for celebration and growth. Remember that as you read and as you listen to some of her many works, as you go exploring on your own. This is meant as an introduction. She as I said, she had breast cancer in the 1980s, 1970s, I think, and wrote an exquisite, and now I've got to go out and get this, a really beautiful book called The Cancer Journals. And in true form, she really highlighted her own experience, no holds barred. And she, for instance, she talks about her decision not to wear a prosthesis after having a mastectomy. And she says, prosthesis offers the empty comfort of nobody will know the difference. But it is that very difference which I wish to affirm because I have lived it and survived it and wish to share that strength with other women. If we are to translate the silence surrounding breast cancer into language and action against this scourge, then the first step is that women with mastectomies must become visible to each other. Written back in 1980. This, I keep saying how extraordinary she was. And she lives on. Here is another one. This is another quote from her before I read some of her poems. I have a duty, Lorde once stated, to speak the truth as I see it, and to share not just my triumphs, not just the things that feel good, but the pain, the intense, often unmitigating pain. She is held today in so many ways. One of an organization called the Audre Lorde Project, definitely look that up, is here in New York City. They were our beneficiary for some of our shows during the pandemic, for some of my Fourth U Artivist shows, which I think some of you at least know about. I'll include a link to that because we have another benefit coming up the end of April. And they really, their mission is to support LGBTQ people of all persuasions in political action, in just supporting, emotional support, every kind of support imaginable. So check out the Audre Lorde Project. Okay, I think there's so much I could say. Oh, she also started, which I thought was kind of not surprising, but still amazing. She started her own press with a couple other black writers, black female writers. Kitchen Table was the name of the press, Women of Color Press. And the idea there was to further the writings of other black feminists. Okay, I think I'm going to share with you these two poems. I'm not drawn. I actually have a great chant, but I don't know if you can hear. I'm a little croaky. I'm not quite sure what's going on. But I'm going to share with you two poems, two very different ones, but just exquisite in their own right. This one is Now that I am forever with child, that she wrote about her pregnancy. How the days went when you were blooming within me. I remember each upon each, the swelling changed planes of my body, and how you first fluttered, then jumped, and I thought it was my heart. How the days wound down, and the turning of winter I recall, with you growing heavy against the wind. I thought, now her hands are formed, and her hair has started to curl. Now her teeth are done, now she sneezes. Then the seed opened. I bore you one morning just before spring. My head rang like a fiery piston. My legs were towers between which a new world was passing. Since then, I can only distinguish one thread within running hours, you, flowing through selves toward you. That's called Now That I'm Forever with Child. This one, powerful in a very different way. Echoes. There is a timbre of voice that comes from not being heard and knowing you are not being heard, noticed only by others, not heard for the same reason. The flavor of midnight fruit tongue calling your body through dark light, piercing the allure of safety, ripping the glitter of silence around you. Dazzle me with color, and perhaps I won't notice till after you're gone. Your hot grain smell tattooed into each new poem, resonant beyond escape. I am listening in that fine space between desire and always the grave stillness before choice. As my tongue unravels, in what pitch will the scream hang unsung or shiver like lace on the borders of never recording? Which dreams heal? Which dreams can kill? Stabbing a man and burning his body for cover. Being caught. Making love to a woman. I do not know. So I leave you with these powerful words, with the invitation, with the exhortation, I don't know that I've ever used that word, to definitely move in your own way to discover whatever it is that you resonate with in Audre Lorde's world. She was iconic. She lives with us today in so many ways, the ripple effects of her words and her impact in the world. Thank you so much for being with me. And I hope you will share this with anyone that you think would enjoy it. Join me on Facebook and Instagram Live whenever you can, or to the YouTube channel. And I'd love to hear comments. I'd love to hear what you found, either as you've already explored Audre Lorde and how she represents the divine feminine in all of us. It is there. Whatever sort of activism you're drawn to do, whatever feminist, whatever revolutionary actions you're drawn to take, she is there for all of us. Thank you. Namaste. Have a beautiful week.